This content is produced by Pass the CSLB, an independent audio-first study companion for busy California B general candidates. I build these lessons from official CSLB study guide topics and reputable source-backed California materials so you can study on the go. This is exam prep reinforcement, not legal, professional, engineering, or job-specific advice. Exam content is set by PSI and the CSLB and may change, so always verify current requirements against official CSLB materials. No exam outcome is guaranteed. Now let's get into it. The central field decision in this lesson is simple. Special inspection has to be coordinated before the work reaches the point that nobody can meaningfully observe it. An epoxy anchor can cure. A weld can be covered, coated, or built into the next operation. Once that happens, an inspector cannot go back in time and watch the installation. That is why the general B skill here is not designing the anchor or performing the weld. It is recognizing the trigger, bringing in the right qualified people, and sequencing the work so the required observation actually occurs. Imagine a contractor who treats special inspection like a final sign-off. The crew installs overhead adhesive anchors in the morning, the epoxy cures, and the inspector is called after lunch. The contractor may have excellent workers and clean-looking anchors, but the required continuous observation did not happen. The immediate problem is not appearance. The problem is that critical installation steps were never independently observed. That can produce investigation, delay, or rework that could have been avoided with one scheduling decision. Special inspection is not the same thing as the ordinary inspection performed by the local building department. I think of them as two inspection lanes serving different functions. The local building official administers the permit and the normal inspection process. The special inspector is an approved, specialized third party assigned to particular materials, installations, fabrication, erection, or placement identified by the building code and the approved construction documents. Special inspection is additional oversight. It does not replace the local building inspection. Looking at this comparison, the most important distinction is who the special inspector works for. Under California Building Code, Section 1704.2, the owner or the owner's authorized agent, other than the contractor, employs the approved agency that performs special inspections. The contractor may employ that agency only when the contractor is also the owner. That hiring rule changes the contractor's role. I do not tell a General B contractor to shop for the cheapest inspector and place the inspector under the superintendent's contract. I tell the contractor to confirm that the owner has engaged the approved agency, coordinate access and timing, provide the approved documents needed for the inspection, and keep the work available for observation. The contractor manages the operation, but the inspection agency remains independent. The practical memory connection is to follow the money. The owner hires the special inspection agency. The contractor coordinates the work. That separation helps preserve objective reporting when schedule pressure and correction costs show up. The next distinction is continuous versus periodic special inspection. Continuous special inspection means the inspector is present full-time in the immediate area while the designated work is being performed. Periodic special inspection means the inspector is present intermittently as needed and at the completion of the work assigned for inspection. Those words sound administrative, but the field difference is substantial. Continuous means the operation cannot simply be performed and shown later. The inspector needs to observe the work as it happens. Periodic allows the inspection schedule to be matched to selected stages and completed work, as required for that category. I use a wet concrete comparison as a memory aid. Some conditions are only visible during placement. After the material changes state, the evidence is different. Adhesive injection and certain welding operations have the same scheduling problem. The finished connection may look clean while the critical process details are hidden. Continuous observation is aimed at the process while it is still observable. This is where a capable superintendent earns time instead of losing it. Before releasing the crew, the superintendent confirms the inspection frequency, the inspector's arrival, the qualified installer or welder, the approved documents, and access to the work. That short coordination step protects the critical path. For post-installed adhesive anchors in hardened concrete, orientation and loading are the key triggers in this lesson. Adhesive anchors installed in horizontal or upwardly inclined positions to resist sustained tension loads require continuous special inspection. In plain job site language, think about an anchor that is pulling sideways or overhead under a load that remains on it. That combination deserves attention before anybody opens the adhesive cartridge. The chart puts the trigger in one line: horizontal or upwardly inclined orientation, sustained tension, continuous special inspection. The installer also generally must be an ACI and CRSI certified adhesive anchor installer. The stated exception in the research applies when the factored design tension is less than 100 pounds, and that condition is clearly noted on the approved construction documents. I want to keep the general B boundary clear. The contractor does not decide that an anchor is lightly loaded, revise the design tension, or substitute an installation method. The approved documents and the responsible design professionals control the design. The contractor verifies that the field condition matches those documents, that the required credential is current, and that the owner-hired inspector is present for work requiring continuous observation. The reason sustained tension matters is that adhesive anchors rely on the bond among the steel element, the cured adhesive, and the concrete. Under a continuing pull, some adhesive systems can deform gradually, a behavior called creep. Overhead and horizontal installation can also make void control and hole preparation especially important. The installer has to follow the evaluated system and the manufacturer's printed installation instructions, including the required hole cleaning, adhesive placement, embedment, and cure conditions. A documented failure helps make the mechanism memorable without turning it into a prediction about every anchor. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation of the 2006 ceiling collapse in Boston's Interstate 90 connector tunnel reported adhesive anchor problems involving sustained loading, creep performance, and installation voids. That event illustrates why an overhead adhesive anchor cannot be treated as a simple drill and fill task. It does not mean every adhesive anchor carries the same condition. It means the specified system, orientation, load, installer qualification, and inspection requirement all matter. Consider a hypothetical seismic retrofit. The plans call for steel hardware attached to the underside of an existing concrete slab with post-installed adhesive anchors. The crew is ready, but the certified installer card has not been verified, and the special inspector is still driving to the site. The correct supervision decision is to hold the injection work. Drilling and preparation should also be sequenced so the inspector can observe every step assigned for continuous inspection. Waiting at that moment is cheaper than trying to prove an unobserved installation after the adhesive cures. Structural welding follows the same basic principle, but the inspection frequency depends on the type of weld. Complete joint penetration groove welds, partial joint penetration groove welds, multi-pass fillet welds, and single-pass fillet welds greater than 5/16 of an inch require continuous special inspection. Single-pass fillet welds that are 5/16 of an inch or less, along with floor and roof deck welds, require periodic special inspection. The dividing line is not whether a weld looks large to the superintendent. The code categories control. A multi-pass fillet weld remains in the continuous group. A single-pass fillet weld moves between continuous and periodic at the 5/16 of an inch threshold. Floor and roof deck welds are in the periodic group identified in the source material. I want the contractor to read the weld symbols and inspection requirements with the qualified welding and inspection personnel, not improvise from visual judgment. The General B contractor coordinates access, sequencing, approved procedures, qualified parties, and correction of discrepancies. The contractor does not turn this lesson into welding design or assume that ordinary field experience replaces the required qualifications. Suppose a steel connection includes a complete joint penetration groove weld. If the contractor schedules the special inspector only for a final visit, the inspection plan does not match the continuous category. The weld process must be available for observation while the work is active. By contrast, a roof deck welding operation identified for periodic inspection does not require the inspector to stand beside every weld for the entire operation. The contractor still coordinates the required periodic visits and keeps the work accessible. Off-site fabrication creates another common trap. Moving structural steelwork into a shop does not automatically eliminate special inspection. The off-site exception depends on the shop's formal status. Under California Building Code, Section 1704.2.5.2, special inspection is not required for work performed on the premises of an approved fabricator when that fabricator is registered and approved by the building official and submits a certificate of compliance. The key phrase is approved fabricator, not simply fabricator. I would verify the shop's accepted status for the jurisdiction and the required documentation before awarding the work. A polished shop, a long client list, or a strong reputation is not the same thing as formal approval by the building official. This is a procurement decision with schedule consequences. An approved fabricator can perform covered shop work under its approved quality system and deliver the certificate of compliance. A shop without that status may require the applicable special inspection during fabrication. The contractor who checks this before purchase orders are signed can price and schedule the correct path instead of discovering the inspection requirement after fabrication begins. Special inspectors also follow a defined reporting chain when they find non-conforming work. The inspector brings the discrepancy to the immediate attention of the contractor. That gives the contractor the opportunity to correct the item promptly. If the discrepancy remains uncorrected, the inspector notifies the building official and the registered design professional in responsible charge. I want that sequence remembered accurately. The special inspector identifies and reports the discrepancy. The contractor coordinates correction. Unresolved items are escalated to the public authority and the responsible design professional. That does not mean the contractor should debate the inspector while the questionable work disappears behind finishes. A clean response is to stop the affected operation when necessary, protect the work, document the condition, obtain direction from the responsible parties, complete the approved correction, and arrange reinspection. The exact corrective method comes from the approved documents and responsible professionals, not from guesswork. The worst scheduling choice is to bury the issue. Concealment does not cure non-conforming work. It turns a correctable field item into a larger coordination and documentation problem. Welding supervision also includes a hazard that can be invisible even to an experienced crew. California occupational safety and health regulations prohibit the use of chlorinated solvents within 200 feet of an exposed welding arc. Surfaces prepared with chlorinated solvents must be thoroughly dry or steamed clean before welding begins. The danger is the interaction between the solvent vapor and the arc. Ultraviolet energy and heat from welding can break down chlorinated solvent vapors into highly toxic decomposition products, including phosgene. A surface can look clean while vapor remains in the area, especially where air movement is poor. That is why appearance is not a reliable clearance test. I would treat an aerosol degreaser as a product to identify before it reaches the welding area, not after somebody has already sprayed it. The superintendent should confirm the chemical, control where it is used, enforce the separation from exposed arcs, and make sure prepared surfaces meet the dry or steam-cleaned condition before welding. The source material also identifies a local exhaust requirement of at least 100 lineal feet per minute in the welding zone, unless mechanical dilution ventilation is sufficient or workplace monitoring demonstrates that exposure remains below established limits. The contractor's job is not to guess air velocity by feel. The job is to make sure the required ventilation or verified alternative is actually provided for the operation. Imagine a worker cleaning an oily steel member with a chlorinated brake cleaner because the product cuts grease quickly. The steel looks ready, but the welding arc is nearby. The correct decision is to stop the work, remove the solvent use from the prohibited area, ventilate as required, and make sure the surface is thoroughly dry or steam cleaned before the arc is struck. The hidden chemical condition is more important than the clean appearance. I bring all of this together with one supervision sequence. First, I identify the connection and read the approved documents before work is released. I look for adhesive anchors, weld categories, off-site fabrication, and any special inspection requirement tied to the work. Second, I confirm the contracting chain. The owner or the owner's authorized agent employs the approved special inspection agency. I coordinate the agency without compromising that independence. Third, I verify the people and the timing. For horizontal or upwardly inclined adhesive anchors under sustained tension, I confirm continuous inspection and the required certified installer, subject to the clearly documented low tension exception described in the approved documents. For welding, I match the inspection frequency to the code category rather than a casual impression of weld size. Fourth, I keep the work observable. I do not let adhesive cure, welds become inaccessible, or structural work become concealed before the required inspection has occurred. Fifth, I collect the reporting documents. For an approved fabricator, that includes the certificate of compliance. For field special inspection, that includes the required reports and resolution of discrepancies. Sixth, I control welding chemicals and ventilation. Chlorinated solvents stay outside the 200-foot boundary from exposed arcs. Prepared surfaces meet the required condition, and the required exhaust or verified ventilation approach is in place. The memory connection is this: identify, engage, verify, observe, document, and protect. Identify the trigger. Engage the owner-hired agency. Verify qualifications and frequency. Observe before the work disappears. Document compliance and corrections. Protect workers from the welding environment. Based on the published CSLB study outline, seismic hardware requirements and installation fall within testable material for the General B classification. The useful skill is not memorizing isolated words. It is recognizing when the project crosses from ordinary coordination into specialized, independent observation. I want you to finish with 3 distinctions. A municipal inspection and a special inspection are not substitutes. They operate together. Continuous and periodic do not describe how important the entire project feels. They describe the required presence of the special inspector for the specific work category. Off-site and approved fabricator are not synonyms. The exception follows formal approved status and the certificate of compliance. For adhesive anchors, remember the combination: horizontal or upwardly inclined, sustained tension, continuous inspection, and a certified installer unless the approved documents clearly establish the stated low tension exception. For welding, remember the threshold and the weld type. Major groove welds, multi-pass fillet welds, and larger single-pass fillet welds fall in the continuous group. Smaller single-pass fillet welds and floor or roof deck welds fall in the periodic group described in the source material. For safety, remember that clean-looking steel can still sit in a dangerous vapor zone. Keep chlorinated solvents at least 200 feet from an exposed arc. Make sure the prepared surface is thoroughly dry or steam cleaned, and provide the required ventilation. There is an audio practice quiz for this specific episode, and I built it for the way you are probably studying. It is audio-based, the questions are read aloud, and you answer by tapping, so it works for people studying while driving, working, or moving through the day. Go to the description below this video. You will see a link that says, Pass the CSLB. Tap it. It will take you straight there. Comment below with any questions about the material I covered. I read those questions because they help me make each lesson more useful. Subscribe so I can help you stay on track through every episode until you get your license. I know this process takes discipline, and I am here to keep the next study step clear and manageable.